I feel like we've all had a situation in our life where we were in a place that was not the best for us. It was very traumatic. And because we were in that situation, we ended up making decisions that we normally would not make, or we started to do things that later on we realized we regret. That's why today I want to talk about learning to forgive yourself for how you acted while you were in survival mode. If this is your first time seeing me, welcome to the club of for learning and for healing. I'm your host, The Real Mel B, and this is the Thought Daughter podcast. Have you ever been in a toxic situation that honestly caused you to act completely out of character? Or maybe you were in a toxic situation, but that toxic situation kind of caused you to not act like yourself. You weren't taking care of yourself. You weren't making the proper decisions for your body and your health. I'm here to tell you to stop beating yourself up over that. Because when we are in survival mode, our brain is not properly reacting to everything. We are not making rational decisions because of the state that our brain is in. This can manifest itself in a bunch of different ways. It can look like you being sent into a depressive episode because you're in survival mode and you are not taking care of yourself, you're not showering, you're not going to the gym, you're not eating healthier foods or things that you even like. All because your brain is completely and totally focused on surviving. I feel like some of the most common forms of being put in a survival mode that we see are our innermost relationships, whether that's romantic relationships that we have with friends or family. A lot of time in my experience, I was put into survival mode by other people, like a lot of us. I was in survival mode because I was in really bad relationships with people that didn't really care about me. And therefore, in return, I was not taking care of myself, eating properly. I did nothing kind for myself. Even the way that I spoke to myself wasn't kind. I was put into survival mode by my innermost family that I lived with in the childhood home that I grew up in. I didn't really feel like I got to progress a lot as a teenager into an adult because I was in survival mode so much. So I didn't really take the time to kind of get to know myself, take the time to kind of like know what my interests were until I was able to get out of that situation and I started healing from this. All of these things I would not even do now, but I had to learn how to forgive myself for who I was in survival mode. Still taking accountability and responsibility for, the things that I could have done better, but allowing myself grace to the fact that, hey, like you were not operating in proper energy. You were not operating with a mindset that you should have. And let's say that you did make mistakes or you even hurt some people while being in this traumatic headspace. And you do all of the apologizing, the reconciliation, and you do your part to make sure that you are good with people that you may have affected during that time. A lot of the times, even after all of that is said and done, we revert back to the little shadow in our room during our private time where we're most vulnerable, and we beat ourselves up with guilt because we cannot seem to forgive ourselves for who we were while in survival mode. And sometimes it doesn't even matter if other people forgave us for who we were in survival mode and they understand that we were trying to survive. But the hardest type of forgiveness is forgiving yourself, especially forgiving yourself after something like this. It takes growth, but a lot of grace, a lot of forgiveness. You have to learn to sit there and really say, I was who I was in that moment. It is the past and I cannot change that. But I've done my reconciliation and I can only do better in the future. And I'm going to get up and make it happen. I'm a very firm believer that we cannot change the past. And sometimes we make decisions that all you have to do is really just reconcile and move on because you cannot go back in time and change that thing. But part of moving on is genuinely doing better in the future, doing that reconciliation with people. And specifically that reconciliation with yourself, to forgive yourself for whoever you were during that time. This is a pretty tough process, I'm not gonna lie. It all is. Healing all around is an extremely tough process because one thing with healing is that it not only takes acknowledgement of people that have hurt you, but true healing within takes acknowledgement of the part that you play in your own suffering. It takes accountability for the things that you may have done. Because I feel like it's easy when we talk about healing to talk about the other things that people may have done to us and how all these people may have hurt us. But then we can't seem to forgive ourselves, and we lack accountability in the areas where it's now time to look within and say, okay, what did I do to myself that also did not help push me forward and also affected me? What part am I playing in my own suffering that I can control, that I can fix? Because you cannot control how other people treat you. You can lay the foundation of expectation, but you cannot control how they're going to treat you at the end of the day. Your respect for yourself just has to be stronger than your feelings enough to get up and walk away from people that are not treating you properly. And the process of forgiving ourselves is the hardest, I feel like, even for me. To this present day, even, sometimes I still find it hard to kind of forgive myself for certain things, for things that I allowed in my life, the way that I treated myself, the way that I spoke to myself. It's so hard for us to forgive ourselves, no matter how much forgiveness other people give us. And though it's a tough process, it's completely possible. And it all starts simply by setting those boundaries, not only in place for other people, but in place for yourself. And what can those boundaries look like? Being able to get up and walk away from a situation that is not serving you, from people that are not treating you properly, is a superpower. And I really want you guys to know that. You deserve the utmost respect and love and happiness. And if someone refuses to give that to you and they want to treat you poorly, the door's over there, okay? Don't let it hit you on the way out. And it's as simple as that. You really need to stand firm on your boundaries. Like I stated, your self-respect has to be stronger than your feelings. Through and through, 1000%. You have to respect yourself more than you want the approval of other people. You have to respect yourself more than your want for validation, your want for someone's presence, your want to prove a point. I'd say the amount of self-respect that I gained is what definitely boosted this like self-power that I have. Because I respect myself so much, I'm not putting up with certain things. Because I respect myself so much, I'm not allowing certain things in my life. Because I respect myself so much, I'm going to take better care of myself. And I'm also going to make sure that I am standing firm on the boundaries that I place, because I deserve the best. And I really want you guys to say that to yourselves like every single morning in the mirror, because you need to speak that to yourself and you will start to believe that it's true, because it is true. You do deserve those things. Setting boundaries with yourself looks like when you obviously know that a certain environment maybe doesn't do you well, you intentionally make sure you stay away from that. Setting boundaries with yourself looks like you no longer making excuses to push off time with yourself. You no longer making yourself a second option, which is something that we are all so incredibly guilty of. I feel like so many people don't even realize that they do it, but you make yourself a second option. You break your own boundaries all the time, whether that's with like people pleasing and you doing something that you don't really want to do. All of that is disrespecting a boundary that you have with yourself. And with the aspect of allowing yourself a lot of grace when it comes to healing from who you were, you have to really digest in your mind to understand that you weren't in your right mind. And no, that is not an excuse. That is honestly simple science. When your brain is in survival mode for whatever traumatic situation that you are in, your brain switches from being prefrontal cortex driven to amygdala driven. And if you don't know what that means, your amygdala is a section of your brain that kind of like pushes out your emotional and reactive responses, which is needed in certain situations. But when you're in survival mode, your amygdala starts to make you much more reactive, much more emotional driven, instead of how your brain normally is, which is prefrontal cortex driven, which is more of your calmer, logical, rational, thought out responses. Please do not blame yourself, because it is literally science that when you are in survival mode and when you are in a traumatic situation, your brain's rational decision making just shuts off and you start to pump out all these more reactive chemicals, which can lead to you making decisions that you would probably not be okay with, or decisions that you know aren't good for you. And when you're coming out of survival mode, it's going to take time for your brain to realize, hey, I don't need to actually be pushing out all of these reactive emotional responses, and I can actually go back to, pushing out more of the logical and calm and rational decision making. Something that I would say to myself every single morning while I was trying to heal from a lot of the shame that I had felt on, not taking good care of myself and things that I did in survival mode, was looking in the mirror and saying to myself, I understand the space that you were in. I understand the space you are in now. Cannot change who I was, but I can be better in the future. And I said that to myself every single morning. And I told myself it is okay to forgive myself for who I was during that survival mode. It's okay for me to give myself gentle love and grace and understanding. You can have understanding and accountability in the same section. They can coexist. You can be accountable for saying to yourself, man, I really didn't make good decisions for myself when I was in survival mode. That's the accountability. And you can match that with grace by also saying, but I'm going to do better now. And I understand it was hard for you to kind of do anything that was good for you at that moment in time. We're going to do better in the future. It is okay now. And you can focus on rebuilding that trust with yourself and repairing the relationship with yourself by starting there with forgiveness and learning to heal from who you were in survival mode. They really are not lying when they say that you are not yourself when it comes to survival mode at all. You really do become somebody different because your brain is trying to protect you from whatever abusive or traumatic behaviors that you're presented with whatever that situation is. And a lot of us are carrying subconscious shame in the littlest things that we do as well. If you lack forgiveness for yourself, that can show up in ways of you not trusting yourself when it comes to bigger decisions, or trusting yourself to actually keep yourself safe. You don't trust your own word. You don't trust that you can count on yourself. You lose a lot of self-reliability. But learning to forgive yourself and learning to heal and understanding that you now in healing and who you can become is completely different than who you were. And mind you, completely staying in that mindset is totally optional. Like, you do not have to, and you remaining the same person that you were in survival mode when you get out of survival mode, again, completely optional. You are able to change yourself whenever you want, as much as you want. That's the wonderful thing about free will, is you can wake up and decide, today I'm going to change, today I'm going to do things better, today I'm going to be better than yesterday. And that is what healing and learning how to heal from being in survival mode is really about. It's about making the decision to not want to stay in that mindset and getting yourself out of that survival mode and choosing to be better every day forward. Self-love and self-respect are two humongous things that I feel like I've gained from that lesson. Like I've mentioned a lot, the foundation within myself became much, much stronger. The second you learn to forgive yourself, you tap into a power that you have always had, but it's just been laying dormant. You tap into the ability to open a space within yourself for accountability and for grace. And for a lot of people, especially in today's day and age, that is rare because a lot of people cannot take accountability, let alone inner accountability about things that they've done to themselves, whether that's treating themselves badly, etc. So our key takeaways from today is to be gentle with yourself, allow yourself time, allow yourself grace, and set those boundaries, even set those hard line boundaries. That right there is your superpower, is a boundary. I love setting me a good boundary, but make sure you set them healthily, that you are still allowing people in, but you understand that there are certain things that you will not put up with anymore. And our end of podcast question of the day is from Anonymous, and it is, how did you gain so much confidence in yourself? That is a very loaded question, I feel like, but the simplest answer that I could give is that I stopped apologizing for who I was and I fully stepped into my authenticity. When I stopped apologizing for who I was, I stopped seeing the need to even apologize. I asked myself, what am I even saying sorry for Who am I even saying sorry to? And I woke up every single day and I wore my confidence like a robe, like something I was genuinely proud of. And every single day that I did that, the more and more confidence started to just feel natural. And I was able to go into every day with this crazy level of confidence that I didn't even need to try for anymore. That is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Also, click the link down below if you prefer my Spotify version. This is linked on my Spotify under the Thought Daughter podcast. Thank you so much for the question. Make sure you guys check out my Instagram as well as my TikTok, where my Instagram stories is going to have where you can send in your question for the end of podcast question. Love you guys so much. Make sure you stay cunty, make money, and always ask questions. I will talk to you next time. Bye.